The City of Bristol, providing beautiful parks, economic development, and a family-friendly community.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the joint meeting for Tuesday, September 14th. Ask you if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to start with identifying the members, starting on my left.
Mary Fortier, City Council.
Ernie Barton, City Council.
Dave Kraleski, City Council.
Scott Rosado, City Council.
Ron Burns, Board of Finance.
Peter Kelly, City Council.
John Smith, Board of Finance.
Online we have Glenn Heiser. Hi, Glenn. And in our audience, also Orlando is online as well. We have John Mace and Marie O'Brien in the audience. Is there anybody that I missed?
David Mikowski.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of the joint meeting held on August 10th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Is there any item that anyone would like to exclude from the consent calendar? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 3. To approve carryovers from the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 to fiscal year 2021 to 2022 totaling $823,492 within the general fund. I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, I'll accept a motion to approve the carryovers from fiscal year 2020 to 2021 to fiscal year 2021 to 2022 totaling $32,097 within the Community Development Block Grant Fund.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 5, to approve carryovers from fiscal year 2020 to 2021 to fiscal year 2021 to 2022 totaling $361,431 within the Sewer Operating and Assessment Fund.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 6, to make any additional appropriation of $50,000 within the Coronavirus Recovery Fund funded by the American Rescue Plan funds for Bristol Burlington Health District for COVID mitigation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 7, to make an additional appropriation of $157,200 within the Coronavirus Recovery Fund funded by the American Rescue Plan funds for Project Manager Services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. To make an additional appropriation of $1,200,000 within the Capital Projects Fund, schools funded by Green Hills Litigation Settlement Funds.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And next, I'll ask our Comptroller for the monthly revenue and expense report presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, I have a short report tonight. Just a couple of things. We only have 2 months of the fiscal year that are really complete for 21-22. Just one thing to point out on the current tax revenues, we are really in line with where we should be. We've collected $84.8 million, which is 55.2% of the budget. Just one thing to note, last year at this time we did defer the collections until August. We don't have that this year. So I expect that on a cash flow basis, everything will be coming in as normal and will be more comparable to prior years. With regard to building permits and conveyance taxes, those are coming in stronger again this year. So keep our fingers crossed that we have some surpluses there as well. Our investment income is not, we're only at 4.5% of the budget, but we do only have 1 month of revenues reported for investment income. So August has not yet been reported on that, but we anticipated that investment earnings were going to be a little bit lower this year. One thing that I do want to mention, I know at the next Board of Finance meeting, we will be doing a review of the investment policy on the general fund monies. And we'll also be reviewing the investments. We've asked the treasurer and the deputy treasurer to put together a list of the investments at June 30th so that you can have that and look at that. It's been a while, I think, since that has been presented to the Board of Finance. So that is scheduled for the September meeting. With regard to expenditures, really only 2 months of the fiscal year right now are complete. If you're looking at the expenditure report and things look like, they're 100% expended, we do encumber at the beginning of the year for many items. So that right now is nothing to be too concerned with. And then just report on the ARPA task force. To date, $217,200 has been appropriated from that. I know you have on the agenda later, on your council agenda, to approve the contract with the consultant that we've hired. So really excited to get that moving so we can get the consultant working and start looking at appropriating the money for the ARPA money. 2 other things. The audit, we're still working on closing the fiscal year. The auditors will be here in October. Probably at your next meeting for the Board of Finance, hopefully for September, if not October, we'll have the rest of the assignments of fund balance that we usually do for the audit. We have to get that done before they come here, so that's just basically assigning some of the fund balance reserves for other purposes. So hopefully we'll be able to have that done for the next meeting. That being said, I know the Board of Ed, I know they're speaking a little bit later about some of their requests, but they did return at the end of June 30th, $4.7 million is what they reported to the Board of Finance at their last meeting. And they are requesting that 2.38 be set aside, which per statute they can do up to 2%. And then there was a one-time request of 1.47, and I'm not sure if anything's changed since then, but I know that you'll be presenting that later this evening. Returning to the city about $870,000, so that will go into surplus, and we'll look at where we will reserve that at the end of June 30th. Just one other thing to report, which is good news. I know it was reported at the Board of Finance meeting. The city did receive the Excellence Award in Financial Reporting from GFOA. Again, this is the 34th year that we have received that award for the annual report. And I just want to say congratulations and thank for their hard work, Robin Manuel and Skip Gillis in my office, because they work really hard to make sure that the audit is ready when they come, the financials are ready when they come here, and they work really hard to make sure that we have no comments, everything goes smoothly, and that the audit report itself meets up to the standards that GFOA has set. So I just want to publicly thank them and congratulate them. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Please express our thanks as well.
Yep, thank you. Are there any questions on anything?
Anyone have questions? Believe? No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other business proper to come before the committee? Hearing none, I'll ask for an adjournment.
Move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the September City Council meeting. We start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The members of the City Council, please introduce themselves, starting on my far left.
Mary Fortier, District 3.
Brittany Barney, District 3.
Dave Proleski, District 2.
Scott Rosado, District 1.
Greg Hahn, District 1.
Peter Kelly, 2nd District.
For a moment of reflection, I would just like to ask everyone for a moment of silence, thinking about all of the victims of 9/11 20 years ago, the families and the first responders and all that was encountered that day and what continues to live with many of us 20 years later. Thank you. The second item on our agenda tonight is the approval of our minutes of the regular City Council meeting on August 10th and the special City Council meeting that was held on August 2nd. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, tonight we're starting off our public participation with a presentation by the Bristol Board of Education regarding their Reimagining Plan 2023. Okay. Hello, Chairwoman Doobie.
Good evening. Hi to our mayor, our city council, our friends from the Board of Ed who came to support us, and our colleagues. On behalf of the Bristol Board of Education, I'm pleased to be welcoming the central office team to present the Reimagining Bristol Public Schools plan for 2023. The board unanimously voted support for this hardy plan in the spring after what seems like years, and more years of work, plans, and deliberation. There is so much to share, so I will now turn it over to Dr. Carbone and her team.
Thank you, Chair Doobie. Thank you for allowing us to present this evening the Reimagining Bristol Public Schools 2023. This plan was developed over many months of intensive study led by the Bristol Board of Education and included our Bristol Public Schools community, various administrators, faculty members, and represents what we believe to be the best use of our facilities, addresses the age and the needs of those facilities while creating an equitable and well-appointed classrooms to serve our Bristol Public Schools scholars well into the 21st century. When the Board of Education and the senior leadership team began this work in the fall of 2019, we identified 4 goals: to renovate old and outdated buildings, to redistrict in order to create parity in class size and demographics, to adopt a consistent grade configuration and instructional model across all schools aligned to the developmental plane of the child, and to increase access to full-day pre-K programming. As stated earlier, the plan presented this evening is a result of 18 months of analysis and multiple iterations of possible grade configurations, school projects, and redistricting boundaries. A few highlights of our work include obtaining an updated enrollment and feasibility study from Milone and McBroom, which will be referred to from now on as SLR Consulting, analyzing our student outcomes from the various school models from 2016 through 2019, ensuring that we had multiple board workshops in which we explored a variety of school models, grade, and district configurations, solicited feedback from our Bristol Public School community and our board. And in June 2021, the board unanimously voted to recommend the plan that we will be sharing with you this evening. Before we present the entire plan, I would like to thank the Board of Education Commissioners, especially those who are here with us this evening, for their diligence and attention to the multiple details and impact that this plan will have on our scholars, families, and staff, and most importantly, the city's interests moving forward. As I'm sure you are aware, last month the city's Board of Finance voted to form a Northeast Middle School Building Committee, and we are here to share the full vision of the Reimagining plan with you this evening. To get to the plan that we have and we will present thoroughly this evening, there were 4 options that were explored throughout the past few months. Option 1, and there's going to be 4, so if you click, there's going to be 4 different options throughout this slide. I'm only going to highlight the multiple building projects that could have been a possibility within these options, as well as the grade configurations and the impact on redistricting. So within option 1, the focus would be changing the model of our current structure of schools to a pre-K standalone with specialization, a K-4 set of schools, 5-8 set of schools, and a 9-12. Within this was the most robust plan. We would be closing and repurposing Stafford and Edgewood, close the Board of Education offices, relocate Bristol Prep Academy and Adult Ed, relocate our young scholars from Beck, build a new Northeast, which would be a smaller middle school, transition all of our K-8 schools to K-4 or 5-8, renovate Southside School as well as Stafford School, and add classrooms at Hubble, Ivy, Mountain View to address the multiple closures. And in all of the options, you'll see redistricting as one of our key levers to create parity and equity in demographics. The next option, option 2, again, focused on a pre-K specialization with reconfiguring our schools to either a K-4 or 5-8 in our high schools. This also would bring greater parity. The focus on the pre-K center at this time was a decision between either Edgewood or Northeast, or both having one on different sides of the town. Closing Stafford, closing and renovating Edgewood, renovating Southside, and again adding classrooms at Hubble, Ivy, and Mountain View. This would also allow us to relocate our young scholars at Beck, and it would transition our K-8s to either a K-4 or a 5-8. In option 3, you'll still see the theme of the pre-K specialized school. This time the grade configuration would be more traditional of a K-5, 6-8, 9-12 model, but you'll also notice that the K-8s remain online within this model. There would be less building projects. Edgewood would still close with our Beck students backfilling into Edgewood becoming a pre-K academy, building a new Northeast with also a connected pre-K, renovating Southside and Stafford, and adding classrooms again at Hubble, Mountain View, and Ivy, but this time because the K-8s remained online. And lastly, within option 4, this would be a mixed use, and very similar to the model that we have now. Right now we have pre-K-5, pre-K-8, K-8, K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. That would still exist within this option. It was the option that had the least amount of renovations or school closures. Edgewood still was closed and would be repurposed into a pre-K academy. I'm sorry, Edgewood closes completely and the pre-K academy was relocated to Chippens. The renovation at Chippens would need to occur to accommodate our youngest learners, and the renovations at Southside and Stafford would address the closure at Edgewood. Lastly, adding classrooms at Mountain View, Hubble, and again, a redistricting plan. Each one of the 4 options presented had merits and challenges, and based upon the request of the Board of Education and feedback from families, we developed a 5th option. The manner in which we collected most of our information from our parents, families, and staff was through thought exchange, and we asked 3 particular questions. It was purposely designed to ask families their experience when their child participated in had their education through either a K-8 experience, a K-5 experience, or a 6-8 experience. Those were the 3 questions highlighted. There were 1,000 participants in this study, survey. There were 1,000 distinct thoughts or opinions and over 27,000 ratings. An example of what we're talking about within those ratings is in the next slide. When asked, this slide represents asking families who have experienced a K-8. We were able to gather opinions and feedback from families, and others could then rate those statements. An example from the first statement on the slide is that for 9 years, someone's world as a Green Hills parent, because it had a pre-K experience, stays very small, but it was difficult to transition into high school. And on the right-hand side, you can see how many distinct people would have then rated it and where that comment fell within the ratings, so of those 1,000 comments. Using all of that feedback, plus the feedback from the board, to reduce the number of building projects, a 5th option was then created. Within the 5th option, there were still 3 more options, and I will go through what ended up being the unanimously voted upon, what we are calling Reimagine Bristol Public Schools 2023. Within this plan, ultimately, the building project, school closure, redistricting plan, timeline, and grade configuration presented this evening is the work and result of our 5th set of options. This plan better serves students and offers revenue opportunity at the pre-K level, solves the problem of outgrowing space dedicated to our pre-K students at Beck, addresses inconsistent enrollment patterns and outdated buildings. The plan offers an equitable learning environment for all of our BPS scholars with aligned grade configurations throughout the district and creates parity in all school demographics. A summary of the plan is as follows. Edgewood School closing and being repurposed to a pre-K academy. Our young scholars at Beck will be relocated to the pre-K academy along with our scattered pre-K sites. We have 7 sites across the district. We will reconfigure the grade bands to a K-5, 6-8, and 9-12. And within this model, there will be 2 large comprehensive middle schools, Chippens being one and Northeast being the other, which is the request to build a larger Northeast than the campus footprint that we have now. We will redistrict to align to a larger Northeast middle school and to align our middle school directly into our high school feeder patterns, which doesn't currently happen because Chippens splits between 2 high schools. We will conduct spot renovations at West Bristol in Green Hills because of the conversion from a K-8 to a K-5 facility, with moderate renovations at Edgewood to accommodate our younger scholars. And then this would require redistricting in 2 phases to address the building project. First, the closure of Edgewood, and then secondly, when Northeast is built, accommodate that transition. The next slide actually highlights these 2 phases. To the left is phase 1, and you'll see on the left-hand data table, we are keeping online Green Hills and West Bristol as K-8s, which will accommodate 600 middle schoolers, while we close Edgewood and open Edgewood as a pre-K academy. In phase 2, at the completion of the Northeast Middle School building, we'll transition to 2 comprehensive middle schools, which will get us back into our final configuration of a K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12 school district. And you'll notice that both Northeast and Chippens become reasonably sized and parity between the 2 middle schools, with Memorial Boulevard being a lottery-only middle school. Well, at this time, the conclusion of phase 2, Chippens Hill students and Northeast students will matriculate naturally into their high schools, Bristol Central and Bristol Eastern respectively. At this time, Ms. Brown will now discuss the detail of the feeder patterns, the redistricting boundaries, and the building projects.
Good evening. As Dr. Carbone highlighted earlier, during phase 1, the new, larger Northeast building is underway, and Edgewood becomes a standalone pre-K center. This graphic shows the intended feeder pattern from elementary to middle schools across the district. During phase 1, Ivy, Mountain View will feed into Northeast Middle School. Southside, Hubble, and Stafford will feed into Chippens Hill Middle School, and the K-8s remain K-8s during phase 1, with minimal changes to Northeast and Chippens. The middle school to high school feeder remains as it currently is, with Northeast feeding Bristol Eastern exclusively, and Chippens splitting, sending some students to BE, some to BC, and the K-8s feeding BC. Here you see a map which outlines the regions of enrollment for each school during phase 1. You will note that the current Edgewood area is out of the mix as it has become a standalone pre-K during phase 1. Elementary schools will be redistricted to allow for this change. Most notably, you see that blue sort of center arrow jotting out to the left. That's the Mountain View school area, which has been extended. That has our lowest enrollment currently. This slide shows the area mapped for grades 6 through 8. Recall that during phase 1, of course, the K-8 schools remain K-8 enrollments. The enrollment at Northeast has been extended, where you again see that blue arrow shape to provide an equitable demographic at the middle school levels. Now we move into phase 2 of the plan. At this point, the new, larger Northeast Middle School has been built, and the 2 K-8 schools will now become K-5 schools. And we have a uniform grade configuration across the district. The pre-K standalone remains at the Edgewood site. Here, Hubble, Ivy Drive, Mountain View, and Southside all have direct feeder patterns into their respective middle schools, while select neighborhoods in the Stafford, West Bristol, and Green Hills areas do not feed into the school's primary middle school. This strategic region assignment ensures equitable enrollments at all sites. Here are the areas that enroll in the K-5 schools, and you can note the circled neighborhoods in which Stafford, which is the small center circle, West Bristol, which is the upper pink circle, and Green Hills, the far right circle. Those are the select areas that feed into Chippens Hill, Northeast, and Northeast respectively. You will also notice on this map a starred area in which shifted from Southside School to Green Hills, and that alleviates enrollment pressures in the projected growth areas within Bristol. The enrollment in each building will now be at target capacity, which allows for flexibility in placing district-wide programming or other special needs. We will have room at the Stafford School to assign special programs and room at Southside to accommodate growing student projections. If you click for me once more, you'll see the circles that highlight demographics of free and reduced lunch and minority populations. These are all in now much closer alignments within 6 or 7 percentage points. This is a regional map of the middle school district boundaries, again highlighting the select neighborhoods from Stafford, Green Hills, and West Bristol that are attending a non-primary middle school. It's estimated approximately 104 students in this area will go to a different middle school. The next slide, you see enrollment chart at the middle school level showing a nearly even target utilization in the building space. And if you advance me once more, again, you'll see the circles highlighting the free and reduced lunch and minority population among the middle schools, which is very, very closely distributed. And then this is the high school boundary map. It's the same map as the middle school map. So this ensures a direct feeder pattern from the middle school to high school level. The blue area is Bristol Eastern, and students matriculate from Northeast. The lavender area is Bristol Central, to which students matriculate from Chippens Hill. Now we'll discuss the building projects needed to move us through phases 1 and 2 of the Reimagining plan. The graphic you see here is the current site of Northeast Middle School, that's in red, and the proposed site for the new larger Northeast building is in blue that will accommodate approximately 800 students. Some facts about the current Northeast building. It's 74,000 square feet. It was built in 1961 with an addition in 1964. In 1983, renovations included partial window replacements, and in 2017, the roof was replaced. Just recently, in 2020, the gym floor and the aging ceiling tiles were replaced. This building is considered in poor condition with mechanical systems identified as in need of replacement, as well as several single-paned windows and interior finishes. Additionally, the building contains a considerable amount of asbestos, so a new build was deemed preferable for Northeast. This is the Edgewood School site. The Edgewood building was built in 1957 with renovations in 1992 that included partial re-roofing, additions of site access, and building addition. Similar to Northeast, mechanicals have been identified as needing replacement, as well as the building's roof and several interior finishes. This building is also rated in poor condition in its current state. Next are the Green Hills and West Bristol sites. These are both rated in excellent condition. Both schools were built in 2012, and targeted renovations will be for approximately 50,000 square feet of each building needed to transition the schools to a K-5 enrollment rather than K-8. Lastly, the Stafford Elementary School, which was built in 1950 with renovations in 1954, which was a building addition. 1987, they did window replacements, and in 2020, we replaced the roof with solar added to that. This is the third and final school building among our properties that is rated in poor condition with, again, mechanical systems identified as in need of replacement, as well as many interior finishes. This slide details a cost estimate for both phases of the Reimagining plan and all building renovations. It's important to note that these estimates were derived strictly from a square footage measurement, including an assumption that mechanical systems will require replacement at all sites, which we know is not the case for Green Hills and West Bristol. Also, the estimate does not include escalation. First is the main project of the building, a new Northeast Middle School at the current Stevens Street site. The plan here is to build a 133,000 square foot school with the ability to accommodate approximately 800 students. The time frame is estimated to be between 32 and 36 months, and the current Northeast will be demolished once all projects are complete. This will allow us for swing space if needed while the other projects are in progress. The estimated cost for the new Northeast building is $70.15 million. Next is the estimate for minor renovations to the Edgewood building. The estimated area to be renovated is the 44,000 square foot building and includes an allowance for mechanicals, electricals, and plumbing. The total project cost, excluding escalation, is estimated to be $7.8 million with an estimated time frame of 6 to 8 months. The Green Hills numbers there are, again, based upon 50,000 square feet in measurement, which represents the current 6 through 8 sections of the building. Both estimates include an allowance for mechanicals, which is a broad brush estimate based on square footage only. We expect these numbers will be much, much less after schematic design, and an estimated time frame here is 6 to 8 months. After that is Stafford Elementary. That's a renovate as new project for a 64,000 square foot building at an estimated cost of $10.78 million and a project schedule of 8 to 12 months. And lastly, the demolition of the Northeast Middle School at the conclusion of all the projects takes about 2 to 4 months at an estimated cost of $3 million. You can see that all of that added up is a total reimagining project of $110 million with a cost to the city of $38.5 million. They've used the numbers there for Green Hills and West Bristol. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but that solely square footage estimate alone, including mechanicals, is like a $9 million number. It's nowhere near that, so this is going to be far less. I didn't want to change what the vendor had presented to us. so that's why it's presented to you in that fashion. So we certainly appreciate your time and thank you for your consideration of our Reimagining Bristol Public Schools 2023 plan, and would welcome any questions that you might have.
I have a question. I've actually already had a lot of constituents approach me about redistricting with some concerns about how that's going to impact them. Seeing as this plan has been unanimously supported by the Board of Education, do you know when there'll be like a street list or information available so that people can anticipate what their children's future education will look like?
We have on the website right now an interactive map for all families that they can utilize, and an email that they can respond to us directly in case they have any questions.
Okay.
Because of the two stages of the redistricting. There's also the support of the board to move the closure of Edgewood until the spring of 2023.
Okay.
This is 1 year out from its inception, the original inception.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? It's a lot to take in, very comprehensive. I appreciate you bringing it to us so that we can start thinking about it. We do have our appointment for the Northeast Building Committee tonight, so I see that will be moving forward for those purposes. How do you envision the rest of the process starting? Will it be this budget cycle, capital planning? How do you envision moving
It'll
forward?
align to the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
And the stages will be Northeast first, in the spot renovations at Edgewood, coming in second, and then 3 years out, coming back and starting the renovations at Stafford.
I'm sorry, I have another question. So will you be including like any energy efficiencies or like things like the Stafford project with solar? Is that on the roadmap for these newer schools that are going to be renovated to reduce costs?
Those are decisions that would be made at the schematic design phase of the project and would be discussed at that time, but I would think most certainly we would look for energy efficient systems.
Okay.
And I have one question. Again, it is overwhelming, so I'm sure we'll have more at some point. But my question would be, you're not anticipating, well, you're not, the plan doesn't show how the numbers of students, you know, what's your plan? Are you anticipating that our student population is growing in general or staying the same? And therefore, what would be your anticipated thoughts about staffing in general? In other words, would you think that at the end of this you would have the same number of teachers or more or less?
Depending upon the state, at different stages and different phases, the staffing shifts doesn't necessarily mean that we are reducing staffing. So when we talk about the closure of Edgewood in phase 1, and the way student enrollment is, what we used was our 2019 student enrollment projected forward using 10 years of projected enrollment. And there is a decline of enrollment beginning in the 2025, 2026 school year. So that's taken into consideration within this plan. In reference to staffing, we can project out the number of sections at the elementary school and the number of sections that are highlighted within the numbers at the middle school. So we can do an estimate of the staffing. Where cost savings to the city comes in is efficiencies in where we have students being relocated into their new schools, because right now we have students who are being redistricted out of the Edgewood area because we only have 2 sections, and students not accessing the appropriate class size at Mountain View because of the depressed enrollment area on that side of town. What we're trying to do is create parity in class size.
I understand that. Yeah, but I'm just wondering if it ends up meaning you won't need as many teachers.
I wouldn't want to project that right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also tonight, we're going to be hearing from Chief Gould for an update for some strategic planning happening in the police department as part of our public participation presentations as well.
Yep, click on, yep. And if you could open up strategic. And then start the slideshow. You go up to slideshow. Yep. And from beginning. And then you just hit enter. And then I'll have you open up a second one.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and all those in the audience. I hate to have my back to you. I'll try to do my thing and spin around and talk to you all in the community of Bristol. So one of the things that I wanted to do tonight is a lot of questions are asked about the police department and how do we address crime, how do we get our philosophy out there, what are we doing to get our mission through the entire department. One of the things that I've put together recently is basically a strategic plan. I do a budget presentation every year. We have our overall goals, our long-term objectives and stuff specific to divisions. But what I wanted to do was put together basically a strategic plan for the department where I'd like to see us going in the next 3 to 5 years. And I want to just do a very quick presentation on what has been put out to our staff. I had a staff meeting and presented this plan, and we're going to be rolling this out to the entire department. I think it's important for everybody to have the idea of where we're going. Next slide, please. So we have our mission statement. Everybody pretty much knows this mission statement when they hear me speak. I usually roll that mission statement in as much as I can. I believe in it fully. We've had it for a long time. It's one of the best mission statements that I think is out there. And we try to really influence and have our people understand what that mission statement is all about. There's some very important words in that mission statement. And that mission statement is our overall statement. Next slide, please. Something new for us, a vision statement. We've really not had a vision statement. And that's no negativity on our past. It's just, I think, going forward, where do we need to be? And for those of you that might not be familiar with the vision statement, what that vision statement is where do we want to be tomorrow? Where are we today? Where do we want to be tomorrow? So this is kind of what we came up with for our vision statement, serving the community of Bristol with greatness today and serving the community of Bristol with excellence tomorrow. And I'm going to bring you through how we get to that excellence. Next slide, please. We also have a guiding philosophy. I won't run you through the whole guiding philosophy, but it's basically giving our department members that whole philosophy of what we're about. And as you read through that, you're going to see building and forming lasting and successful partnerships with our community. You know, everything we do is collective and individually with our core values and principles. And that's building into our vision, our mission, and our values. We are very committed to delivering quality service to the entire city, and I hope that we can do a better job with the plan that we're rolling out. You're going to see terms like procedural justice and police legitimacy, and I'll go into those as we go on here. Bottom line is, we are all proud to be on the front lines here serving the city of Bristol. Next slide, please. Procedural justice. This is I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but it really is about the fairness in the process to resolve all disputes. And we're not just talking about procedural justice on the outside, we're talking about it on the inside as well. And really, it speaks to those 4 principles that are up there. Fairness in the process, in the process. You know, being fair, being neutral in what we're doing, transparency in our actions. That comes to doing trustworthiness, trying to do what's best for the people, not for ourselves. Opportunities for the voice, giving people a voice to listen. An example of that is, you know, a simple motor vehicle stop. You know, very traditional ways police have done that in the past is stopping a vehicle and being very authoritative, license, registration, insurance. What was I stopped for? License, registration, insurance. What was I stopped for? License, registration, insurance. you know, and we're trying to change that now. If there's no emergencies and no need, license, registration, insurance can wait a moment, explain what they're being stopped for. You know, just take that moment to say, this is the reason why I stopped you, this is who I am, this is what happened, you know, so that you start that dialogue. Again, absent emergencies aside, we're never giving that up. And impartiality in the decision making, giving people a voice, and I do that internally as well. When I'm retraining and such like that, give the people a voice and treat them fairly. Next slide, please. Goal, that's our final overall goal, right? We just want to give the very best police services to improve the quality of life for residents, business owners, and visitors of the city of Bristol. Next. Daily objectives, you got to have daily objectives. We're looking at mission first and our people always, and that's people inside, outside the entire agency, and that's actually a military statement. Next slide, please. Maintain a safe and secure community. That's our first objective, and I'm going to go into a little bit about how we do that. I rolled out 8 objectives. Objective 2, that's building legitimacy and trust between the Bristol Police Department and the community we serve. What is police legitimacy? Well, it's right there. It reflects the belief that police ought to be allowed to exercise authority to maintain social order, manage conflicts, and solve problems in the communities. Legitimacy is reflected in these 3 judgments: public trust and confidence, and a belief that police are honest and that they try to do their jobs well, and they are trying to protect the community against crime and violence. Legitimacy reflects the willingness of residents to defer to the law and police authority. It's their sense of obligation and responsibility to accept police authority. Finally, legitimacy involves the belief that police actions are morally justified and appropriate to the circumstances. Next objective, please. Community policing and crime prevention. Next slide. Enhance employee skills and leadership. Next slide. Progress towards Tier 3 straight accreditation, which is something that we've already completed, so I will buzz us through that, and you're all aware of that. Objective 6. Evaluate the department organization and deployment. Next slide. Traffic safety. Next slide. And professionalism overall. If you can exit out of that and bring up. There's how we get there. Yep, that one. And you can start the slideshow. So how we get there, these are rolling out the objectives 1 through 3. Next slide, please. So Sir Robert Peel, some of you heard of Sir Robert Peel, 1829, known as the father of modern day policing. And we believe very much in the 9 principles that were rolled out back in the 1800s, that it was actually exceptional. If you look at those principles, you will see that they are actually built into 21st century policing and part of the Police Accountability Bill. They're right there. And this was a person that came up with these with his staff in the 1800s and over in England, and it's something that we value here and we're adopting through our mission. Principle 1, I won't go and read these off. I'll just say prevent crime and disorder. Principle 2, perform their duties dependent on public approval. It's important. Principle 3, we need to have the willing cooperation of the public. Principle 4, the degree, if you look at, you'll see before those terms procedural justice and legitimacy, which are terms that have come out in the 21st century, are actually out of these principles here. Principle 4, the degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured. It diminishes proportionally to the necessity of the use of force. When people are willing to submit and understand that authority and it's done with trust, there will be less force being used. Principle 5, seek and preserve public favor, not by creating the public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. Next slide, please. 6, we use physical force only to the extent necessary and nothing more. And that is what our Police Accountability Bill is all about and all the new use of force laws rolling out. Principle 7, police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that police are the public and the public are the police. We are servants. We are servants of the public. We are one. We're together. Principle 8, police should always direct their actions strictly towards their functions and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. Principle 9, the test of police efficiency in the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with it. I'll talk about more of that in a bit. Problem-orientated policing. This was done by Herman Goldstein. This is part of the stuff that I studied when I was going through my executive development. And really what that comes down to is identifying problems, not reacting to them, but being proactive and trying to identify them and come up with incident-driven stats and coming up with plans. Next slide, please. We do this through the SARA model. Okay, SARA really is something you can use in a lot of different aspects of your life, but we at the department are looking at scanning, trying to look for areas where there's issues. We try to analyze them to see what's really going on. That will help us with our response, and after our response, we come up with an assessment. You can exit out of this and bring up the final one. It's, yep, strategic. I'm sorry, how we get there too. Sorry, thank you. Good thing you're paying attention. Oh, don't delete it. Next slide, please. This is the final objectives here. One of the things that, that I believe in, the staff that I work with believe in, is the term of servant leadership. And it's something that we are pushing out through the entire department. This is what I'm training the executive leaders in. And really, it's that putting yourself last, not relying on your formal position or your formal authority. It's about the service. We are public servants, and we can do that at all levels in the organization. And there are absolute evidence to show that by being that leader, that servant first, and you will get better leadership and better people serving out on our streets. Next slide, please. It's just going into more about the servant leader. Again, this is stuff that I'm rolling out to the staff, so it's just going a little more depth into it. Trying to listen, understand, accept. Empathy is a big thing. To have that empathy, and it's okay to be exercise high emotional intelligence. Don't react to situations. Try to intelligently respond to them and stuff. Next slide, please. Training and equipment. Training and equipment is one of the things that we are investing in heavily. As you know, when that police accountability bill came out, there was a lot of equipment that was mandatory. We are in the process of ordering the vehicle dashboard cameras for all our police vehicles, expanding upon our body-worn camera system, and all other types of equipment so that we can meet our goals, objectives, and mission. Training is big too, and I'm investing a lot in the training of our department in many different areas, spending a lot of time in that executive development. I have myself on down, continuously going to executive development, keeping our training fresh. We're utilizing the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Series. I have a number of executive leaders that have gone through that whole trilogy. We're using the Southern Police Institute, and I have 3 of our newer and new-to-be supervisor going to a leadership academy in October. Next slide, please. Accreditation. Listen, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We've already gotten ahead of on this one, and proud to say that we are Tier 3 accredited. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Evaluation. So there's always the how do you know that you're meeting what you're saying you're going to do, and it's about conducting that evaluation. And we are looking at ways, and we're going to be conducting these, quarterly to half a year to yearly, to see where we stand and are we meeting these goals, objectives, and so on. How do I do that? Well, again, the goal is preventing crime, okay? And it's not catching criminals, okay? There's a big difference between that. Doesn't mean we don't catch criminals, but it's preventing crime. And we stop crime before it happens. If we get to do that, the philosophy is we don't have to, what they say is, quote, punish citizens or suppress their rights. An effective police department doesn't have high arrest stats. Its community has low crime rates. That's kind of the measure that we are shooting for. Key to preventing crime is earning public support. Every community member must share the responsibility of preventing crime. And we partner with our community all the time. I'll tell you, the city of Bristol is great. When we work with people in different areas, we get a whole bunch of cooperation, and through that team effort is how we prevent crime. Again, earn that support by earning their approval, winning public approval. It is hard work, but that's how you build your reputation. Next slide. Traffic. Traffic is a big concern, and we're spending a lot of time there. And we're looking at how we address our traffic problems, what we are calling the 3 E's. And that's going to be education, enforcement, and engineering. In engineering, we have a great relationship with our other city departments, such as Public Works, and we do a lot of work with coming up ways that we can do traffic calming. There's a lot of reasons why we're seeing speeds increase, not only here in Bristol, but throughout our state, throughout our nation. Road design, the way vehicles are made now, there's a lot going into it, and we're trying to look at measures so that we can prevent that. So those are just some highlights for what our traffic division is going to be focusing on. Again, we always have the responsibility to go to routine accidents. We're looking at target speed and safety enforcement, and you can read out the rest of them there. Next slide, please. All our personnel, we're looking at standards of professional behavior. The next slide, please, is going to show you 10 principles that we are going to be making a commitment to follow. This is from a course that I went to a while back, and they were just looking for that commitment of honesty, integrity, authority, respect, and courtesy, equality, diversity, use of force, orders and instructions, duties and responsibilities, confidentiality, fitness for work, conduct, challenging and reporting improper behavior. We follow those 10 principles, and we're going to be in really good shape. Next slide, please. Current evaluation, just kind of want to give you an idea of where we stand at the moment. So how we look at what's called index offenses. Index offenses are what we were reporting through the Uniform Crime Reporting. Murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Next slide, please. In 2019, there's been a change of reporting in the state of Connecticut. We have been using NIBRS for a long time. NIBRS is a natural incident-based reporting system. The entire state has moved in that direction now. So we're kind of looking at what's considered all offenses, and they really break it down to 3 areas: crimes against persons, crimes against property, crimes against society. And in each of those 3 areas is subsets such as murder, manslaughter, on through. But that's the 3 areas where we're going to be focusing on. Next slide. Doing a quick 2-year analysis, looking from 2019 to 2020, we saw that we had an approximate 3.9% decrease in summary offenses, which is pretty good. January through March of 20 to 2021, so that's now, comparing our first quarter, there was an approximate 31% decrease in our summary offenses. These are unofficial stats. They're stats that we just keep running and control of. That's a severe decrease. That number is nothing massively important other than that there was a decrease. Whenever they're coming in quarters and such like that, you're going to see these large increases or decreases, and when it comes to percentages, that could be that we had 2 less of an incident, So just kind of showing the trends there. Next, I believe, is a graph, just kind of showing where we stand at the moment as these summary offenses are declining in the city of Bristol. Next slide, please. This is in line with our calls for service. So one of the things I try to match up is if I see that certain crimes are reportedly, and these are crimes that we know about, folks. These are crimes that we investigate, that we know about. If those are going down, what do our calls for service look like? Because theoretically, if those are going down, then really our calls for service should be going down if we're not answering so many things. Police are going through just about everything these days, so we log a lot more calls for service, ironically, but because we see the decline in the summary offenses, we do see a decline. So 2018, we responded to approximately 50,349, 2019, 48,000, 2020, 47,000, and 2021 to approximate date, we're at 31,000, which is about 122 per day. So, we're happy to see those numbers as well. Next slide. And these, again, are just how we're evaluating that department, how we're looking to see, is our response plans working? And we're going to be looking for those trends. And over the years, we should be seeing, hopefully, I would like to see them continuously decline, but You know, I'm a realist too, and we're going to see them go up, and we're going to try to figure out why they move in that direction. Just the calls for service showing the little bit of decline there. Next slide, please. Stolen motor vehicles. I want to bring this up because this is a big topic, not only in our city, but throughout our state and as well as the nation. Stolen motor vehicle rates are on an extreme rise in most of our cities and in most of our states. Bristol, we have seen a little bit movement, but as I reported to the police commission a while back, we are not at the level, fortunately, that other communities are experiencing at this moment. So in 2018, we had about 0.3 per day, working out to be about 107. 2019, we had about 0.2 a day, per day, which was 87. 2020, we had approximately 126, which was about a 0.3. And right now, we're at approximately 64, which is about 0.3 per day. So we're seeing, you know, we're not seeing that incredible spike, but I will tell you about how we're responding to that, because certainly communities around us are seeing it, and there's, without question, we're going to see something if we don't respond to it. Next slide, please. So that's just a little bit of a graph there, just to kind of show the trends of how those reported stolen motor vehicles are happening. Next slide, please. Larceny for motor vehicles. This is an area where I saw an increase. So we're looking at our stats, we're roughly looking at 0.4 per day in 2018 to where we are now at about 0.5 per day. So that's an area. See, now I got a star next to that because I see that that's a trend starting to trend up, and we need to start to respond to that. Next slide, please. Just going to be a little graph, just kind of showing the trends. Next slide, please. Okay, that's fine. If you can go back. So what we're experiencing in the communities is larcenies for motor vehicles are, we're trying to do a whole educational campaign out there right now. We recently released some educational stuff on our Facebook page. We put out a video showing how quick it can be for someone to lose a purse in a car or such, or a wallet or something. And we've also just did a radio spot with one of our partners, and pretty soon, if not happening already at the gas stations that participate, you should hear officers talking about reminders to lock your vehicle and such. But what is happening is we're seeing there's a trend going on, and it's happening at pretty much a lot of fuel stations where people are pulling up to get fuel, and what they do is they get out of their car, and this is a lot, it has to do with your gas, where your gas tank is too. For those that have gas tanks on the passenger side, the person will get out, will walk to their passenger side, and they open up their gas tank, and then they face the pump, and they start doing their credit card. And while they're facing the pump, a car will pull up, and that car will pull up as if they're going to get gas. Driver's side door opens, person crouches down, they crawl across, they open the door, they grab whatever property's in there, jump back in their car, take off, and it's literally before the person has even turned back around to start pumping gas in the car. They have no idea that they've even just had a larceny occur, and it's not until they go back to their car that they're looking for whatever it is. It happens that quick. We have a video on our page showing how it happens. We have already started looking at the gas stations that we believe that we're having an issue at, and without getting into too much, because we do not want to give up too much about what we're doing, we do have a plan in place, and I have what ended up happening was the Hartford Capital Region had started talking about a regional task force, motor vehicle task force. I heard about it, and though I had not seen the spike that we have seen, I certainly know that it's an issue. The cars that we are finding are from other cities. Our cars are ending up in the capital region and such. Bristol's in a unique location. We're seeing things coming in from Waterbury, we're seeing things coming in from Hartford, and so we're like kind of in that middle. That's where our stuff is going to. I ended up attending a capital region meeting and said, listen, Bristol wants to be part of this. And through that, we got some coronavirus relief fund opportunities. What happened is the governor had put aside some money for these cities willing to participate in these task forces and such, and I applied for it, and we just got word, I think, the other day that we just received $35,000, which I'll be putting before the police commission to solely respond to this type of issue. So we are going to be part of that task force. We've already made our commitment to Hartford, and we're waiting for all for the attorneys here. We're waiting for our MOUs to come in, which you'll all be looking at too, and we will have be a full-time part of that task force to try to address these issues, and we'll be utilizing the money that we just received to start doing some of our own work here on some of the spots that that's starting as we're speaking. We have other grants that we have taken advantage of right now. We have applied for the a COPS grant. What the COPS grant is adding to our department. Currently we're at 119. We're 122, slated for 122, and we're looking to add an additional 5 officers through a COPS grant if we get that. So these are all stuff that we're doing to kind of try to help us meet our mission. I will tell you one of our big challenges right now is hiring. We just had a recruitment, and I think that I just heard that our list that's being developed by Human Resources, I think we have 10 people on the list, 10. And I can tell you that's a significant issue. We've had hundreds of people on that list, hundreds, and we have 10. That's only after going through the written and the oral board. That's not even going through a background yet. So certainly going to be a challenge for law enforcement, and we need to figure out how we can kind of get back to recruiting a large number of people. It's just the way it is at the moment. Working with Human Resources, which has been a great partnership. We're not waiting. We have literally started to, even though we haven't started doing background on these people yet, we're starting a new recruitment process, a new testing process, and we're literally going to have another list ready to go so that if we exhaust this one, we're ready to pull from another. Next slide, please. One of the things for transparency purposes is a while back we had talked about some things where we were rolling out the department. I had mentioned that we were going to start posting our general orders online. That has happened. We're looking at our general orders. That we have a whole bunch of general orders. Some don't. You don't need to know where we keep our hand soaps and all that. But ones that I think are important to the public, and as it goes on, if people ask me about a policy, we'll put them up there. But that's just kind of a list of what can be accessed now on our web page. We've got a lot of things about use of force, pursuits, protocols for police-involved shootings, missing persons, internal investigation, hate crimes, family violence, fair and impartial policing, our electronic weapons such as our taser, our body-worn cameras, and our recruitment is some of the ones that we have on there. So you can go online, look at what our general orders are and how we do that. Next slide. Need my notebook for this. So this is pretty neat. I'm officially announcing tonight that these two officers, Officer Erica McNally and Officer Corey St. Pierre, they just graduated from what is the 2021 Connecticut Institute for Youth and Police Relations. It's the inaugural cohort. And they graduated this past Friday after 8 months of attending this. How this developed is in the Capital Region, with everything going on, we had determined it was really important for us to start interacting and engaging with our youth. We do that already through our schools and all that, but we wanted to take a much deeper dive into it. So partnering with New Haven University, the University of New Haven, they brought in a team that was, we brought to the Capital Region. And we discussed this project. It was about a 2-year planning. And Bristol, we were right on board. As soon as I saw it, I said, we're in. This is what we want to do. What do we need to do for it? So here they are. So after 2 years of that rigorous planning and application process, only 12 police officers from the greater Hartford region were chosen. And I'm proud to say that 2 of them were from here in Bristol. What this is about is, as agents of change, the CYPR graduates have compromised community engagement projects that will provide long-term sustainable efforts to improving youth and police relations in the greater Hartford area and throughout the state of Connecticut. During this program, led by Dr. Danielle Cooper and Dr. Lorenzo Boyd, Officers McNally and St. Pierre developed a community engagement project, partnering with the Juvenile Review Board here in Bristol and Bristol's Youth Services Department, where they and other police officers will be participating in trust-building events with our community. I would like to officially congratulate these officers and all the other officers in the Capital Region that graduated this groundbreaking endeavor. Again, we're proud to be on the front lines of change and establishing better relations with our community. And so we're looking forward to what the plan is that they're going to be implementing to engage with our youth a little more. And so that's about it. I just wanted to kind of give a quick overview, and if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, I will certainly address whatever I can. One thing I would like to say is that social media is a great thing, okay? But a lot of times it's hard to keep up with social media. It's hard to police social media. And I just want the opportunity to stand before you and our community today so that you can hear what's going on versus what might be portrayed in social media. I'm not saying social media is wrong or bad, but I do think that sometimes things get out, and if we don't do a good enough job getting out and addressing and informing, they kind of take off on a life of its own. We're responsive, we're here, and we're going to continue to serve with a lot of pride and a lot of excellence. Questions, comments, concerns, please.
I think you definitely addressed the main concern that's on many of our minds, because we do end up in the positions that we have here on the dais being reactive to social media. And it's very difficult for us to, in a very short amount of time or conversation, engage a community or a neighborhood and let them understand that there may be an ongoing investigation that we can't comment on because it could potentially jeopardize the situation. I've had many conversations with people who say there's absolutely drug activity happening at a certain address, where we may or may not know that some of the people that they are seeing coming in and out might be part of your department. We can't discuss those things. So it's extremely frustrating for many of us knowing that there is activity happening, that there is training, that there is a response from the officers, and a lot of behind the scenes work that isn't being discussed on social media. So it's good to see that these foundations are in place. Obviously, we can have some questions to you. We have had some hot spots in the past week that I know your department's been working on, and I think that those particular areas are of concern, and it engenders some type of response. I know oftentimes that your response via media has to wait because you're putting together pieces, and I think that that's important for the public to understand as well. There's nothing to say until your initial investigation and assessment has been done. So recently, you had made an arrest on the Federal Hill area for the shooting that occurred in and around Huntington Woods. Sunday night, there was another incident. And then we have the purse snatching situations from the gas stations. That has really dominated social media over the last week. Does anybody have any questions? Councilman Pulaski?
Yeah, you referred to that. You know, the motor vehicle larceny, that's really scary stuff. It's on everybody's mind right now. But I'm questioning, are the gas station owners being cooperative with you and the department? I would think that just having a presence there from time to time, key times, would be very indicative of the focus that you're putting on those situations. Yeah?
So, you know, we've taken a very, I want to say, like, use backwards approach to it. Usually we would go out and we would start maybe a surveillance operation and such. Because of the frequency and the way it's happening, we started reaching out. We're identifying hotspots in those areas that we're seeing. We've met with the owners or the representatives of the companies to get us in touch with the owners. And I received a report just today on conversations are going very well. They're eager to, listen, it's bad for their business. Okay, if people are posting online, don't go here, don't go there, because this is what's going to happen. they only stand to lose as well, business. People aren't gonna go where they don't feel safe. I won't either. So they are very engaged and are looking to help us, help them, and that's through not only doing operational stuff, but doing a lot of education and stuff as well. So I'm hopeful that we start to see in our community, you know, as you're looking at the gas pump, you might be reminded by looking at something in the gas pump to quickly turn back around. You know, so listen, these things are happening, and they're happening very quickly and sporadically. And you know, we also need to do a better job of educating our public as well. You know, just really getting people in the mindset of lock the doors, hide your valuables. You know, don't make it an easy target. These things are easy targets. When you watch it happen, it's just because it's a crime of opportunity, and then you see the ones that did lock the door, you watch them get out on video, test the door, it's locked, they're back in their car, they leave, just by a simple locking the door. So we just need to do that constant education, you know, fortify, put valuables away, you know, harden your target, and you know, and it will be helpful.
I think it's, oh, sorry, a little more of the same, but I just appreciate you coming here and giving this in-depth presentation, because I think you're right. I mean, looking at the trends backwards, the amount of the incidences has not really changed that much. But with a group like Bristol Talks, and I'll just say that group's name, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people in there all kind of jumping onto one issue. And I think when you have a format like that, it seems like things happen more often because I'm getting a notification every 5 minutes that there's a comment on something. Whereas in 2018, that may not have been the same story, or 2016, you know what I'm saying. But so I appreciate you giving the context, because I think that when we are so engrossed in these notifications and things like that, it makes it seem like things are trending in a different direction. And so I appreciate you bringing it to us. I'd love to think that people watch us on Nutmeg and are really paying attention to what happens in City Council, but sadly it's probably not the thousands of people in Bristol Talks. But, so I don't know, I agree with you, and I think that your plan to try to communicate with the public in different ways would definitely be effective, because I get a lot of direct feedback from people like thinking that there's not, cops aren't doing anything. It's obviously you're doing everything that you can, and you're working really hard, as evidenced by the presentations you provided tonight, and what I know that you do as a leader. So I just, I encourage you to explore those avenues so that people can be informed. I mean, I saw that the mayor of New Haven is doing regular press conferences with the chief of police. Granted, we hope to never be in the situation they were in New Haven, because it's really harsh and horrible. But, you know, I don't know what other avenues there are, but.
Yeah, I think we need to, you know, one of the things when I was doing all this stuff, I was looking at, I think we need to be just a little bit more informative, just getting this information out there. And listen, I don't want to walk away here. I appreciate and thank you for, you know, the compliment. We can do better. We're always looking to do better anyway. So I don't want this to be that I'm throwing this at you and say, oh, we're doing everything we can. No, we're looking to do things better. We're looking to do more, and you know, and we're looking. Those evaluations are going to help us to be better at what we do too. You know, certainly those things could change in a minute. I don't like to get up in front and talk about stats all the time, because they change in a minute. We could have a spree of 40 vehicles that get hit in a matter of 2 nights, and then everything, you know, changes there. You know, so we're just trying to stay on top of that stuff and be more informative. The other thing that is hard too on social media is terms being used improperly. It's not the public's fault. It's just they don't know. So you might hear, oh my gosh, did you hear about the 5 robberies that happened at the gas station? When they're not robberies. They're you know, people throw that term. They just don't know the difference between a robbery and a larceny of a. So I would be concerned too if I logged on and saw, oh my gosh, there was 6 robberies at this place. Nope, that it wasn't robberies. You know, so that's kind of the stuff that I think that I'd like to do better, kind of getting out on help with that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, because that implies violence, you know, and that's a different situation. And I guess last, just thank you for working on your partnership with Public Works and exploring alternate ways to decrease traffic incidents, because it's probably the #1 concern I
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
What's the latest with the catalytic converters? We were part of that as well across the region.
Yep, that's going to be all part of this whole stolen vehicle, larceny from vehicle initiative that we're going to be undertaking. It's really amazing how these individuals are able to slip underneath the car and remove that within a matter of seconds. Amazing. You know, we've got demonstrations on the type of tool it's used, and it's just a matter of car parked on the side of the road, and before you know it, it's gone. So yeah, we're trying to identify where are they going, right? That's what we're trying to look at right now. If we can find out where they're going, because they're doing it to profit for some reason. So we've got our task force and stuff trying to find out where they're going so that maybe we can work backwards on that as well. Because there's got to be a market, there's obviously a market for this stuff.
Any questions to my right? Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our public participation comment. The first person who has signed up is Tom Burrell.
Hi, my name is Tom Barrow. I live at 498 East Road, and I represent a traditional family value organization called the Coalition for the Preservation of Marriage and Innocence. And we're an affiliate and an ally of the Family Institute of Connecticut. And I thank you very much, honestly, for this opportunity to speak. And I appreciate that you have recognized that there's a hole in the policies for raising flags. And you referred it to the Corporation Council, who has referred it to the Public Works Department. And what we are requesting today is that if there's any way you could expedite it to get that policy to vote on it by next month so that the voters could know where you stand on it. And we'd like to give you another look at our flag, and it's pretty simple. There's no hate in it. We have no hate in our hearts for any individual. It's just a few words from both the Jewish and the Christian scriptures. These words were spoken by Moses and repeated by Jesus and confirmed by the Apostle Paul. They represent an eternal principle from our eternal Creator. The principle is God's idea of marriage, and that's one man and one woman producing a family, and that's the foundation of society. And that's been known and practiced in cultures for thousands of years. You know, it's since Bristol's founding, it's been an unassailable principle. In the seal of the city of Bristol is a church from way back in the days when we were called New Cambridge. And this was a self-evident truth, what a marriage was. And so this principle is God's idea. It's not ours. And you know, we're presenting it. And again, I say we have a mandate from Jesus to love our neighbors as ourselves, and even to love our enemies, and to do good to those that hate us. And but we want to put it in a contrast to the rainbow flag that represents an increasingly radical agenda that is for the early sexualization of children, a transgender movement that is out of control, and to use their own words to do away with the oppression of the heterosexual norm. That means to do away with the marriage of being between a man and a woman. And we are living in a generation where children are confused about their own sexual identity in unprecedented numbers. A generation of children are being separated by race into an oppressor class or a victim class. They're being taught that our nation and its constitution and our society are irredeemably racist and needs to be reconstituted under Marxist principles. The target of this agenda is the family unit, which used to be the cultural bedrock of our society. And I wish to God that I was exaggerating. I wish to God that this wasn't happening, but it is. So I just want to say, please consider where all this is leading to before you vote on the new flag policy. And I thank you for that. Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you. The next speaker is Stephen Pollard.
Stephen Pollard, Fernhill Road. I want to talk about the flag also. What I wanted to ask was, I don't know your process of how you arrived at this, to raise this flag, but did anyone consider how God would feel when you approved this to raise that flag up?
So public participation is not interactive, Mr. Pollard. We are referring the policy to the Public Works policy for our building maintenance, which is where it's going to come from.
Okay. You don't have to give me the answer. But you got to give it to God. Look, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We're one nation under God. Who is he? What does he stand for? What does he approve of? What doesn't he approve of? Is he a gutless coward? Is he a God that doesn't exist? Who is the God that this nation is under? He stands for something. So, listen, I don't hate anybody. God doesn't hate anybody. He forbids me to hate anybody. So this isn't about hate. This is about God and what God approves of. Remember something. Every single one of us are going to die. And we're going to enter his world. And we're going to answer for every single thing that we did in this lifetime. He has laws. The universe is governed by laws. That's why the universe is in complete chaos. There is between 1 trillion and 2 trillion galaxies. If each galaxy had one inhabited planet, there would be 1 to 2 trillion other planets. We're dealing with an amazing God. We don't understand his infiniteness. How much of this universe is enormous compared to 1939 when Edwin Hubble and the scientists back then only understood one galaxy, the Milky Way. So the universe is run by laws. The laws work fantastic. Ask this police officer what he thinks of laws. I think you would have something to say about it. Laws work. Laws keep order. So God has laws. Look, all of the physical laws of the universe, we're discovering them. They're all there to be discovered. They're all God's laws, even the physical laws. The laws of quantum physics is an entirely new field, and they're just beginning to identify those laws. God has spiritual laws. We all live by those laws. But most people don't even know them, or they don't want to know them, or they have no interest in God. They have no interest in how he feels about anything.
Mr. Pollard, can you just bring it back to the point of being in front of the City Council, please?
Of what?
Bringing it back to your policy question or issue.
I want to make this point. God has been very, very, in the scriptures, there are certain stories about how God feels about the corruption of his love. One of those stories is the story of Noah. God destroyed an entire generation of human beings because they corrupted his love.
Okay, and again, I'm going to ask politely that you refer back to the issue at hand, which is the referral of the flag policy to the Public Works Board.
Yes, I'm getting to the flag, but I want you to understand who you're dealing with. That's the issue. Listen, Mr. Lawler and the Judiciary Committee legalized homosexual marriages. They are opposing God. That flag is putting you in a position of opposing God. It's a very, very, very dangerous place to be. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you to understand. God has laws. We're all careful about the laws of electricity. My God, we have building inspectors, we have everything. The laws of gravity, build an airplane, you have more inspections than you could ever imagine. What about God's spiritual laws? How come nobody cares about them? How come we just want to live any way that we want? Anything goes. So God has in the Old Testament a list of blessings for everyone who keeps his laws. You'll find it in Leviticus 26, and you'll also find it in Deuteronomy 28. All the blessings that will be accrued by people who keep God's laws. Then he has all of the curses that are embedded in those laws when they are broken. The very first curse is, God says, I will appoint unto you terror. Curse 1. September 11th, 2001. Terror. We have been fighting terror ever since. We had the Oklahoma City bombing, domestic terror. But this was a magnitude no one could ever have imagined.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Please.
So,
in conclusion,
we are dealing with God. You can do anything you want. You have a free will, but you can never prevent the consequences of your actions from taking hold. I'm trying to help you.
Thank you. I think that we've heard what you've had to say. This is a matter that we are referring the actual policy of how to raise a flag and how people can apply to raise their flag to the City of Bristol, to the Public Works Board, which meets on Thursday. Everything else right now is...
But can you see, do you understand that God opposes this? Listen, God doesn't hate these people. God's trying to salvage them. But you're enabling them.
No. So right now you have exceeded the level of the courtesy that I'm willing to extend to you at the podium. We have dealt with your issue. We have dealt with it and appropriately referred it. We are not going to have a back and forth conversation about your God, my God, or anybody else. It's not appropriate.
There's only one. Let's deal with the God that this nation is under.
I would prefer to deal with the rest of my agenda at this point. We've heard you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. The next person for public participation is Steve Cohen from Main Street.
Good evening. Steve Cohen, C-O-A-N, 331 Main Street. You know, when this young lady in the leopard outfit, I don't know her name, when she got up to speak, she addressed everyone except the taxpayers. And I think when you're asking for $38 million from the taxpayers, you might want to at least acknowledge that they're here. We had a shooting on Main Street Sunday night, and I'm very upset about it. I've lived in that house for 27 years, and I've never thought the day would come when I'd had gunshots in the middle of the street. And although the presentation from the chief was very nice, I find it a little disheartening that this hasn't been addressed. No one has reached out to the neighborhood, including the council people, as far as I know. Mayor hasn't reached out to the neighborhood. We had armed gunmen running up our neighborhood in the middle of the street. And I want to know what you're doing about it.
I think you heard that there is an active investigation, Mr. Cohen.
I haven't heard anything. What are you doing about it?
I am waiting for the police department to come up with their final report, and I will not be commenting on it to jeopardize their ongoing investigation.
have they stepped up the police presence in the neighborhood?
There is always police presence in that neighborhood.
I wouldn't know that. I see cars going up in Main Street doing twice the posted speed limit, sometimes 3 times the posted speed limit. No exhaust systems, illegal exhaust systems. Saw a car go up the street the other day without license plates on it. I don't see any police presence anymore. I used to. I don't see it anymore. You know, I'm not willing to accept a Bristol where shootings are the norm. And I don't think you would either. I think it's only common sense that if any of the people in here had armed gunmen in their neighborhood, they'd want to know at least what was going on. It's a little unnerving. You know, I can put up with a lot on Main Street. I have put up with a lot. And it's gotten so much better. But this is unacceptable, folks. And if you're going to look at me like I'm the bad guy because I'm bringing this to your attention, then go ahead. I don't care. It's unacceptable, and you all know it. And if we're going to accept this type of behavior, then we don't have a city anymore. We have a ghetto. And I'm not willing to accept that. It's ridiculous. We have a new building on Main Street, all new tenants, nice people, and they've got gun holes in their property. How nice. Welcome to Bristol. I think that this is just awful as far as public relations is concerned. I think that the neighbors, we should have been notified about this. What is the status? Are these people still a danger? How long were they in the neighborhood? We don't know any of this. There was never any public statement released, as far as I know, even to the Bristol press.
Yes, there was.
Really? Well, it wasn't a very good one. And I think the council people in District 3, or somebody from the city besides the police, should have responded to this. And it doesn't look good. I'm really quite shocked. And you know, 2 weeks, 2 shootings in 2 weeks, Mayor, doesn't reflect well on you at all.
Sounds like a curse to me.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll have one last request. If there's anybody who appeared late and didn't get a chance to sign up that is here that would like to speak before the City Council. Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to item 4, which is announcements. Does any member of the City Council have anything that they'd like to offer?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. I do have one thing that I do have to, and it seems...
Okay, close to the microphone,
Yes.
please, so people can hear you.
I've been working with the Exchange Club over the last couple months on the Mum Festival. The Mum Festival is happening from the 24th to the 26th. Some of the things that will be going on is the art and jazz under the tent on Friday evening, the Miss Mum Festival pageant. I believe they have about 23 contestants, and that will be on the stage. The next day we'll have opening ceremonies, Sunday the parade, and after the parade there will be a ceremony for hometown heroes honoring our Korean War veterans. So everybody plan your schedule around that weekend. It is going to be a fun weekend, and much kudos, many kudos to the Exchange Club for the work that they put in to bring this about. The last thing I'll say is that they are taking into consideration the hand sanitation, and they've brought things down. There's no longer a touch-a-truck, it's just a truck. So the kids cannot touch them. They can't be lifted into the truck for obvious reasons. The petting zoo is no longer a petting zoo, but rather just a zoo that they can see. So there have been things that have been changed in this time of COVID to make things safer. So please plan around it. It's going to be an exciting time. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Anything else for announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have items 5A through F. Are there any items that anybody would like to pull off? the consent calendar.
Your Honor, I'd like to pull off 5F, please.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 5F is removed. Let's now vote on 5A through E.
Motion to approve consent calendar items A through E.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Proleski, 5F.
Thank you, Your Honor. You know, I'd like to have some discussion with the members regarding the endorsement of the PLA for City Hall. I'm not in favor of it, Your Honor, and I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say. I'm not an expert on this, and I've certainly always been an advocate of collective bargaining, but when in certain situations like these, for the municipal office building, I'm fearful that the information that I have anyway is that a PLA could lead to extra expenses, and from the research I've done, in the trades community in Connecticut, over 80% of those companies are non-union, many of which work out of Bristol and that we represent. The PLA will tell you that it's not exclusive to only union shops, but the terms and conditions of such, in my opinion, are arduous for non-union shops. So I'd like to hear what others have to say, but I'm not in favor of the endorsement. Thank you.
I would like to follow up to what Councilman Proleski said. I mean, I disagree with Councilman Proleski. I am in favor of the PLA. I believe, based on our previous experience with projects here in town, that the litigation with certain projects have actually ended up costing us, and I believe the PLA will protect us against that. And I believe the PLA is good for us financially here in Bristol, and it's good for Bristol generally. The workers in the trades. If I can just share a few items regarding the PLA, the goal with this PLA is to achieve a community participation of 25% of Bristol workers. And it's also looking to make 10% of workers minorities and 5% of workers veterans, another 5% of workers women. So although I do understand some of your concerns, Councilman Proleski, I do believe the good outweighs potential pitfalls. And also, just to add, in doing some research, and the mayor is aware of this as well, Mayor Boughton in Danbury won't do a project of this magnitude without a PLA, nor will Mayor Stewart in New Britain. So it appears to have statewide bipartisan approval. And I think that speaks volumes, because our friends on the other side of the aisle are known for their fiscal responsibility. And I believe both those mayors are showing fiscal responsibility in supporting the PLAs.
You know, I too have dived into the PLAs and in essence to educate myself on them. However, my findings have been that when you talk about the buildings of the magnitude of what this project is going to be, I don't think that this project would require a PLA. I think that it's a smaller scale project as opposed to some of those bigger projects, maybe in Danbury and in New Britain, that they may have done. I think that I'm concerned about some of the extra costs that are in the range of 15 to 17% more over the actual cost of the project if we did use the PLA. I'm concerned about the contractor's requirements and the extra costs that they have to be absorbed with union fees and things like that, to that nature, with not alone the non-union workers' requirements as well, having to pay into their dues and nothing in return. With that being said, I also want to know, how do we ensure the talent is being taught to the non-union workers? And what type of opportunity is going to be given to our community as a whole? So, you know, based on the magnitude of the jobs, I think PLAs are a great thing, but I don't think that this particular job would require that type of a PLA. So I am on the fence of voting no as well.
Your Honor, if I may, I agree with Councilman Kelly, and I don't want to repeat what he said, but one aspect of this I want to make sure that you understand. I've read some independent studies on PLAs, and quite honestly, even the independent studies are on the fence. You can look at it either way depending on your attitude or your direction. But in my opinion, the fair wage aspect of this, and yes, you can find less expensive workers, but and not giving them a fair wage, is that something we want to convey? So in expanding our local workforce with minorities, and like you said, the training of the local workforce, I think we need to lead by example. And whether this is large enough for a PLA or not, I think that this is a good opportunity for Bristol to lay the groundwork down and say that we're for fair wages and equal opportunity, and this is something that Bristol can do to help promote that.
Excuse me, can I just add one thing? Just a correction, Councilman Rosado, the non-union workers won't have to pay union fees. They won't have to join a union. There's agency fees, but they won't pay union fees.
Well, that wasn't my understanding, so.
No, I read that part of the agreement. They definitely do not.
How about the contractor?
I'm sorry?
How about the contractor? Who's ever awarded the contract?
I'm not sure on that. I can get back to you, but the workers definitely do not.
And I just have a few comments. Here in Bristol, we have hundreds of unionized members of the building trades. Their leaders have told me that many of their members travel out of state each day to work. I'd like to have them working locally. The building trades have strong apprenticeship, training, and education infrastructure for their members. This makes them highly qualified professionals in their fields. I'm not sure of the current statistics, but several years ago, the city, including the Board of Education, was Bristol's third largest employer, and I'm very proud that most of our employees are unionized because union jobs provide workers a living wage and benefits that can support a family. I consider us a responsible employer, and I think we also have to be responsible in our contracts with outside entities. When we can, we should be advocating for sustainable jobs, because sustainable jobs sustain our whole community, and that helps our community grow, that helps people be able to buy houses here. We want people to be earning a living wage.
And I'm sorry, Your Honor, it's already almost 4:09, so I apologize. I mean, we were talking a lot, but I think this is an important discussion. And just for the viewing public, and this is kind of how I am, I wanted to define like what we're talking about. You're hearing us say PLA, PLA, PLA. It's like really insider baseball for people that aren't aware of what we're talking about. And we're talking about a project labor agreement, the very high-level definition of which is also known as a community workforce agreement. It's a pre-hire collective bargaining agreement with one or more labor organizations that establishes the terms and conditions of employment for a specific construction project. I'm looking up at the photos of all of those mayors on the wall, and note that they have never done a PLA in Bristol. This is our opportunity to prove people possibly wrong that have said that PLAs are not right for the city of Bristol by giving this project an opportunity. I think there's no better place to try this out where we are encouraging for workers to have livable wages, health insurance, which is really important when we're dealing with a construction project during a pandemic, for a building that's riddled with health issues, for unionized employees that have been serving time through a pandemic, ensuring that this project is done according to code and in the best possible means for highly skilled components like the glass exterior and things like mechanical systems, which have a history of failing in construction projects here in Bristol. I don't think I've heard the letters HVAC as many times as I have in my less than 2 years of council, and I hope to not hear it when we divert this terribly inadequate system here in City Hall and turn it into a more modern and sustainable system. So personally, if you couldn't tell, I am going to be supporting the PLA. I respect entirely my colleagues' opposition to the PLA. For the viewing public, I think it's important to note these differences. I'm sure everyone across the spectrum will have different opinions that's viewing that tonight. But I do encourage you to learn a little bit more about what we're discussing before you make a decision, because it is a little nuanced of a topic. So
Brett, you bring up a good point about the specialties that may be needed, like the glass, for example, and that's probably the biggest part of the job that we're going to have in the front is all glass. So that takes a special talent. And obviously, if the unions can't provide that, then they have to sub that out, like they did with one of the schools for the kitchens and in that manner. And at one point, they were even picketing. Their own union was picketing. Why do they have non-union workers there? So
I don't know what you're talking about.
I believe it was the Green Hills Kitchen that they were redoing. They were restructuring, remodeling, and they had to call someone from Massachusetts who was of the skill level to put in. And I just don't want to have any of those issues be brought up again. And we talk about making sure that we have the union workers to fulfill those jobs. I agree. But sometimes talents are going to go outside of the actual scope of the job. And that's
and the agreement allows for that, though. If there aren't the skills necessary for the project.
I agree, but it gets to the magnitude of the job, and that's where I'm basing my decision off of. Is it a job warranting a PLA? Is it that big of a job that our local construction contractor can't provide that job, so that service?
with all due respect, I think it gives us a better opportunity to get subcontractors in that are skilled appropriately. Not that I don't trust the contractors that we're dealing with, but on projects like the firehouse, there were certain subcontractors used that did subpar work. And I think that it will allow us more oversight and allow us to hire better skilled people because we will be providing a higher reimbursement. So personally, from the work that I've seen, just being a part of some of these minor construction things, thinking about the scope of this project, I personally think it's more beneficial, but you're entitled to.
Excuse me, the final number on this project is how much?
We don't have those yet, but it's going to be in the $30 million, $35 million range.
That's pretty significant.
Listen, discussion like this is healthy. We can respectfully disagree with one another.
Oh, absolutely.
And we do this, not that other people know this, but we do this all the time. And that's good, but I think this is healthy. I don't think there's a wrong answer here because we're all advocates of what we believe in and what we've read or what we know about, and I think we should vote.
Well, and to second that, Councilman Perleski, obviously we all think we have the taxpayers' best interest at mind with our vote, and we can civilly disagree.
And we just did.
Okay, so just to wrap this up and bring it back to the casting of votes. If you notice 5F, the way it's worded and as it was worded last month, it's to endorse the use of a project labor agreement. We have an executed project labor agreement that D'Amato Downs is working with the Greater Hartford Building Trades Council, and I believe is it almost executed or is it executed?
Oh, we're waiting for two. We're waiting to see. Waiting for two.
Oh, okay. So the work has already been done, and a lot of credit should be given to the lead staff at D'Amato Downs for working through this, and our purchasing agent was involved as well. I mentioned last month, and I will just briefly also mention again, that as we're working through some of the value engineering to get to these costs so that we can start that process, we are also looking at the air quality, air circulation, HVAC pieces. which could possibly be an allowable expense under the American Rescue Plan funds, which means if we were to assign that portion of the project and use American Rescue Plan funds, it is very specific in the interim rule that comes out, and I'm betting it'll be in the final rule that we're expecting in the next 60 days, that it is the Department of Treasury's strong preference that project labor agreements be in place when American Rescue Plan dollars are used. So even if it's for a portion of a project, we are setting ourselves up for the potential of reducing some of the impact to the taxpayers by being able to appropriate, if the American Rescue Plan Task Force sees fit to do so, a portion of these expenses that could be upwards of $5 million from that fund as opposed to bonding for it.
Which is great news, but that would be ancillary to the way we would vote. That would just be a benefit.
All right, well, if there is no other comments, I will ask for that. All those in favor to endorse the use of the project labor agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Nay. No.
And the chair votes yes. So it is a 5-2 vote to endorse the use of the project labor agreement. Thank you. Moving on to reports and committee reports. We are starting with the ordinance committee, of which there are 2 items.
Thank you, Your Honor. This first one, as you know, I've mentioned in past meetings, we're cleaning up the ordinances, and this is for call for a public hearing to clean up and eliminate something that's already taken care of in other parts of our regulations. I hereby move that the time and place of Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 at 5:20 p.m. in the first floor meeting room, City Hall, 111 North Main Street, Bristol, Connecticut, be set for the holding of a public hearing thereon by the Ordinance Committee, and that the city clerk publish notice of said public hearing and the proposed amendments to the Code of Ordinances as required by the city charter.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the second round, this is a amendment to the ordinances that, if you remember, we provided for some additional titling of personnel in our park department, park ambassadors. And this next amendment to our ordinance is designed to give them enforcement citation powers. I hereby move that Section 23-1 Ordinance Enforcement Adoption, Formation and Powers, and Section 23-2 Ordinance is designated for enforcement by citation procedures. Sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bristol, Connecticut, is hereby amended to read as follows, as presented. And I further move that the city clerk publish said amendments and additions to the Code of Ordinances, that they become effective upon the expiration of 14 days from the date of their publication in a newspaper of general circulation in the City of Bristol.
Second. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else from ordinance?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Moving on to item C, which is the American Rescue Plan Task Force update. Tonight we're putting forward a motion to award the contract for the project manager services to UHY Advisors, NELLC, for $157,200, and to authorize the mayor or the acting mayor to execute. This will be for the consultant services that will walk us through all of the reporting and documentation that's required, potentially some of the outreach and community meetings, as well as to help us discern what are eligible expenses and which are not, in order to ensure that we are not appropriating dollars to projects that will not be accepted by the Department of Treasury, and thus jeopardizing and potentially making the city have to pay for those expenses. So we'd like to start out with a consultant on board in order to guide us through this process. This is for a 1-year commitment, and we will continue to monitor and analyze what we need as we move forward in years 2 through 5.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Does it protect us to have a consultant in any way, other than the fact that, like, you know, we're going based on the road that, like, if they did try to find us, could we use the fact that we had a consultant?
I think that it does, Councilman Barney, because there's so much unknown, and right now we're still operating with an interim rule. I've also talked to colleagues around the state, and the experience has been that some have already completely appropriated their dollars without even community input. It's bizarre. And then there's some others that have put it totally to their sewer authority, or just taken a very narrow focus on some of those. Broadband, water, sewer, assistance to households, business aid, recovery, mitigation, and there's hazardous pay for frontline workers. There's, you know, some categories that are embedded, but some communities have expanded that, and I feel maybe we're taking a more conservative approach, but I feel that they're at risk. So I sit through these meetings and I hear these conversations, and I don't think that for $28 million, appropriating $157,000 of it to keep us on the straight and narrow, as well as to assist the Comptroller's office with the arduous task of all of these reports that have to go in both quarterly and after certain points, and then there's a look back period, and then there's an audit component. So not only are we going to be reviewing it from an audit perspective for our own purposes, but also from the federal audit. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I think that it's money well spent.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate you expanding on that a little bit. Thank you very much.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. If there's no other conversation, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the Memorial Boulevard Interdistrict Arts Magnet School update, we have 3 motions coming before us tonight. Councilman Perleski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can we take them all at once, you think? Yeah, there are three change orders in the amounts of $80,842.81, $3,845.18, and $15,535.80. And I believe they're credits back to us, actually. They're from reports dating from May, June, and July. As a brief update, everything is going very well. If you go inside the school building right now, really parts of it look like a classroom or a school setting. It's beautiful. And that one of the things you'll see from the August report is we're going to get an additional credit back from the construction manager's contingency fund of about $150,000. That's because where we are with the project right now in this advanced stage, we know this money won't be used, so we would have gotten that back at the end of the project anyway, but they're just giving it back to us in advance as a sign that, you know, things are going okay. And we're within the budget, we're within the contingencies. So that's all good news. But I make a motion, I made a motion for those 3 to be accepted tonight, please.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the 3 change orders presented for the Memorial Boulevard Arts Magnet School. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to other committee reports. Councilman Hahn?
Yes, on the Energy Commission, we've had at the end of the 5-year plan, and so they're in discussions now for attacking and planning for the next 5 years. The first plan was included the creation of a green bank and support for Bristol homeowners with access to lower energy costs through solar, etc., and as well as a few other items. But the next plan will expand to support businesses in Bristol to help reduce energy costs and carbon footprint. There are some preliminary discussions with some businesses already to help them identify options and possible state funding opportunities, but we encourage other businesses to reach out to the Energy Commission to help be in the preliminary discussions about opportunities going forward. If you would like to speak with the Energy Commission, they will be at the Mum Festival. They do have a booth, and you can approach them from a homeowner perspective or a business perspective and get a lot of information there. In the Arts and Culture Commission, we have a couple things that have come to fruition. I want to congratulate them on the tree that was destroyed in the storm of 2020 has been revamped as for its sculpture now from chainsaws by Jared Welcome, I believe. There'll be an official unveiling and a meet and greet with the artist during the 100th anniversary event next month. But you can actually see it now. They did a beautiful job. Instead of just cutting down the tree, they made it into a beautiful piece of art. The first bilingual rec and read is being installed in Brackett Park, and there will be a ribbon cutting on September 22nd at 5:30. This is a collaboration between the Parks Department and the Arts Commission. These are bilingual groups for our Hispanic community to help them learn English, and so it has Hispanic and English versions of the same book, so it's a great learning resource for our children. A mural artist has been chosen to be painting across from Main Street, the Main Street trestle area. This project is slated to be completed by the end of the fall, so look for that as well. There's an event this weekend that we're very proud of on the Arts and Culture Commission. The September 19th Hispanic Heritage Month concert is at 3 o'clock at Rockwell Park. There'll be a salsa demonstration, the lessons prior to the starting up. The band is the Latin Heartbeat Orchestra, a very well-known 13-piece band, and we're hoping that everybody comes out to enjoy the music and to show support for Bristol's Hispanic community. Finally, we have an effort that the Arts and Culture Commission has been working with the Historic Society, the Time Frames of Bristol, which is collaboration, the Historical Society and the Arts Commission, and they will be installed this month in downtown locations. I'm going to ask for Chairperson Lindsay Biggie to come out and give more of an explanation. These items behind me is what we'll be discussing.
I think you should stand up and hold it.
Yes. I don't want to drop it.
We're going to increase
the other
your
one.
pay.
They
Sitting for
get the
this
other
meeting as Arts Chair. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I am your gay City Chair, Arts and Culture Commissioner, happily married. I'm not pretty sure whoever God is, he or she likes me just fine.
Amen.
So this Time Frames of Bristol is a collaboration between the City Arts and Culture Commission and the Historical Society, celebrating the Bristol Historical Society's 50th anniversary. This project actually came from something I saw in Provincetown, how apropos, 6 years ago. I was standing at a jetty and they had a frame similar to what you're seeing in front of you, and it showed a painting of that same jetty. And what you do is you can see the opposite side is just an open frame. And so what you're doing is you're seeing a painting of what it looked like from the 1800s and what you're looking at in today's, in today's view. So we did the same thing. Why not bring it to Bristol? All of these will be downtown. There will be 16 of them. They will also have a map that's being created right now, so that can be given out and people can take their own self-guided tour. I think it's a great thing to do as the city is evolving and changing to pay heritage to our history and where we come from. So the three that I brought in today, one is Litchfield Farm Shop, and what is there today is the Imagination Museum. So what we'll do is these will be, by our hardworking public works, will be installed, and what they will do is put it at the same perspective as what you see today. So these, you can see Main Street over here, Imagination over here, Rockwell Park is over on that one. So basically where you're standing in that moment is what you will see in the images of what they were. So it's a fun kind of thing, you kind of feel what it was like, maybe 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I think our earliest ones are from, I think the early 1850s. So this should be up within the next couple weeks. So and also I want to make mention too that the frames were made by Dusty Dude Woodworking. Their husband and wife team in Bristol. They're wonderful. They were wonderful to work with. They did a great job. And so these should be up within the next couple months. If anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Just wanted to say thank you for staying here through that very uncomfortable meeting for all of us. And I just want you to know how special you are and how grateful I am that you have single-handedly done so many good things in Bristol.
Thank you for me.
Very proud of you. Very happy to see these. Excellent work as always.
Thank you. And you're blessed.
And Your Honor, if I could just finish up, I'm particularly proud of this committee. The Arts and Culture Commission has done is elevated the pride in Bristol, in all of Bristol, whether it's the raising of the rainbow flag, whether it's the Hispanic Heritage Month, the murals that we see. It's a show to celebrate all the people in Bristol, and I'm very, very, very proud. Have a lot of pride in that. So thank you very much.
And thank you for the leadership, for all of you to seeing the value in the arts and how it really helps our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Any other committee reports? And the correct answer to that question is no.
I was going to say, just I think everyone that's here still deserves an all-her award, but you know, that's not really a committee report.
As much as I'd like to move the meeting along, I do have some things.
It's an item.
Can we move item number 14 up?
Certainly.
Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made to bring item 14 up to 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So, on September 25th, we'll be dedicating a monument, and with the City's Council's blessing, we'd like to rename the upper section of East Street, adjacent to the Veterans Boulevard, the Veterans Memorial on the Boulevard, to Wazinski Way. You're going to get a sneak preview this evening if everything goes well, but I just want to tell you a little bit about General Wazinski for those of you who don't know. He was known as Bristol's most decorated war hero. The general resided in Bristol with his wife and 2 daughters, and he was employed as a supervisor at Wallace Barnes Company, which is now known as Barnes Group. Associated Spring. Some of the highlights of the general's military career was serving in the North African Campaign, the Allied invasion of Sicily, and I believe there's even a hill named after him in Sicily. Omaha Beach on D-Day, the landing of Normandy in Europe, and some of his awards include 2 Distinguished Service Crosses with oak leaf clusters, 2 Silver Stars with oak leaf clusters, 1 Bronze Star Medal, and presidential citations. He has been recognized in many books, like The Dead and Those About to Die, D-Day, and The Big Red One at Omaha Beach, as well as being portrayed in movies such as Band of Brothers and The Longest Day. In some of these battles, he single-handedly moved 100 yards while taking on gunfire. It's just amazing to hear his story and the testimonies that are in these books and in movies and things about him that just make him who he is. I can go on all night about the general, but I encourage everyone to join me on the 25th. For me, this isn't only a dedication, but an opportunity to honor one of Bristol's very own American heroes. I will also like to respectfully ask for the council's backing so that we can unveil the new street name in his honor. On behalf of myself, the Wazinski Committee, I'd like to thank the Mayor's Office, Public Works, the Police Department, the Parks Department, because this event wouldn't be possible without all of your assistance and behind-the-scenes work that it takes to make this dedication successful. So I want to thank you again, and if there's anybody that I missed, it is really a collaboration effort. I think this is well deserved.
Okay, so the motion has been made to approve the renaming of the south side of East Street to Wazinski Way. I believe it's been seconded.
Second.
Okay.
Or it has been seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll see everybody on the 25th.
Thank you.
11.
That'll be 11 o'clock. I'm right there. And I have one other thing. Sorry. This is kind of important. I just think it's public information. Sorry. I attended the Veteran Strong annual ball over the weekend, and there was a fact that was kind of emotional for me and others that were there. In light of Suicide Awareness Month, I just want to share this. Since January 2021, there's been 161 active Army members, 68 National Guard, 28 Army Reserve. That's 257 individuals that have taken their life. And while mental illness is certainly a huge factor in some of their decisions, Please take the time to educate yourself on the resources that are available to share with anyone in need, and if you're in need, please reach out. I'll be sharing this information with the Mayor's Opioid Task Force, as I feel this data will be helpful in their mission to assist and develop materials with resources that can benefit our community. So I just wanted to share that with everyone, and I think it's sad. It's a sad fact, but it's reality. Thank you.
I picked up on that look you gave me. I'll double up on my report next council meeting. No, I do not have a report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly. And I apologize to the lawyer that will remain unnamed tonight that I tipped off that I thought the council meeting was going to end by 8:15. So whoever lost the bet based on my information, I'm sorry.
You are always undershooting how long it's going to take.
Any committee reports on this side of the aisle? Okay.
No, Your Honor.
I did put on last week when we were compiling the agenda, the COVID update. I'm going to downsize it quickly. We've had some, a lot of publicity on the uptick with the start of school. I do think that things are going back down, but I did want to just share with you some of the facts and the tracking cases that the Bristol Burlington Health District has. They track data every day. And since Thursday, so this was a 6-day rolling model, we have had 86 additional cases in Bristol, but we've had 0 deaths. So our total cases to date are 6,382 residents who have contracted COVID since March or whenever we started doing that. For the tests that have been taken in the community, anybody who has been tested for COVID in the last period of time, we had a 20.2% positivity rate of those tests taken. That does not mean that there's a 20% COVID infection rate. It means that of the people who went and had tests, 20% of them were positive. This is a 3% reduction since last week, so hopefully we're going to continue to trend back there. And I did want to just make a pitch for anybody who does like to partake of regular testing. The Bristol Burlington Health District, actually with some assistance from the American Rescue Plan Task Force, where we gave them some COVID mitigation dollars up front, has worked with Genesis, and we now have a testing site back on Center Square, which is free. It is open on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from noon until 7. If you do have an insurance card, they will scan it. You can actually register online, and we are encouraging all members of the community to continue to be vigilant, to continue to be tested, and hopefully we will not have the type of uptick we had last fall. Another interesting stat for us is the age breakdowns that the Bristol Burlington Health District tracks as well. We have data from June through September to date of the age groups that are being affected by COVID. I do want to point out that our seniors are doing great. We had single digits for June 1, July 2, September 4 of people over the age of 80 who contracted COVID. So the fact that they were vaccinated early and in such high numbers is very good. However, in August, which is the month where everything spiked here locally, there were 29. So you can see how that data is really trending up from the beginning of the summer as we went into the fall. For the first time, we have, and the tracking that I've been watching, we do have children ages newborn to 3 years old who have been diagnosed. We had an uptick in children ages 4 through 15 for the months of August, but then went down again in September. And so all of the breakdowns are here. The biggest bump, again, is the 40 to 59-year-olds. That seems to be maybe the working people who are out and about and maybe in contact with more people than their older counterparts. So 26 to 39-year-olds is also peaking as well. So we do have this data. We do share some of it on the city website. It is constantly changing, but the message isn't that if you're not vaccinated, there's plenty of places in town where you can become vaccinated. Boosters should be rolling out shortly, especially for our frontline staff, and we're going to continue to monitor our rates and do what we can in order to mitigate to the best of our ability. Moving on to new business. We were going to do a presentation about some of the storms and flooding in order to get people some information about what was happening in certain areas and some of the opportunities for homeowners and businesses in terms of possible reimbursements. But the state has not yet met the threshold of the disaster declaration. It's a lot of money that we would have to meet. So until that happens, I don't think it's probably worth having a conversation. Right now, our Public Works Director, Ray Rogozinski, is estimating we're only at about the $79,000 threshold for damages. For Hartford County, we have to reach almost $5 million in order to get to the declaration. We had most of our storm costs with overtime. And I'm going to ask him, since he stayed for this whole meeting, he has prepared a memo that is going to go to the Public Works Board, which is extremely comprehensive in nature. I think it would be better use of all of our time if I will circulate it to all members of the council, including those that are not on Public Works. He is here to answer questions if anybody has any for specific constituent issues, but we are also due to have our quarterly flood and erosion control meeting. For those of you who remember, we also sit as flood and erosion control, and that meeting is coming up. So it may be better for us to be able to digest the very comprehensive report that Ray has put together, where it's a lot of problem areas are identified, some of the solutions and some of what's already happened, and then come back next month and have that meeting. But he is available if anybody has any immediate questions concerning the past month. Okay.
You know, Mayor, I'd like to thank Ray because Councilman Kelly and I, and I'm sure other council members have had numerous conversations with constituents, and he's been very responsive. Your people have been responsive. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Ray.
I think it's definitely helped lower people's anxiety by the fact that the Public Works staff, engineering, as well as our streets division was so responsive during the storm, and we tried to get to as much as we can. Okay, so we'll wait to hear from the Public Works Director about our flood and erosion control issues, and I'll encourage everyone to review the memo, which will be available. We'll send that all electronically. Is there any other new business or unfinished business that anybody would like to bring forward for the council?
Yeah, I have one item that I think kind of like fits in with the flood conversation. I had received a lot of feedback from people concerned about New Cheese being torn down because of there was an article in Bristol Chats about this, and so I connected with, or I had the mayor connect with Justin Malley to give me some more information because I was receiving direct questions about it. And just to kind of inform people about what the thought process was on that. Obviously, New Cheese is a private business that is for private sale. However, the city did introduce the hazard mitigation grant program to the owners of New Cheese as an option for selling their property, since the owners have retired and since are trying to sell the asset as soon as they can so that they can enjoy their retirement. So the city economic director, whose role is to facilitate those sales, did approach them to recommend it as a possible option because this grant is funded to remove properties from flood zones to potentially lower the risk for the government to reimburse future flood claims at those properties. So I think if you think of it from that perspective, it is a very logical proposition to be made if the New Cheese owners feel like that is the best way for them to approach that situation. And honestly, I think for a city to be welcoming to business and to constituents, we deserve to allow private owners to have all options available when they are trying to liquidate an asset. So I think it was really responsible of the economic development team to do that. They did indicate that they would have some interest in it. There is still active, work being done to try to sell the property. The application itself would fund the purchase. The city would have to demolish the building in that case if that is the route that was taken. I think that we all have emotional attachments to New Cheese. My baby shower was there. My in-laws got married there. But I think that we also have to look at this from a perspective of what's best for the private business owners and what they would want for their organization, for their company, and how that would benefit the area of Forestville that has had historic floods that have ruined different areas, and how it could improve the natural landscape and the ability for the Pequavic River to flow without flooding and causing damage further. So I know it's a very sensitive topic for us because in Bristol we have that small town energy where we have a lot of connection to each other despite the fact that we're 60,000 strong. But just wanted to give some information on that. If you have more questions, I'm happy to talk about it. Or you can always attend an economic development meeting. They have really excellent meetings. Even just scanning their agenda is great because you can get a pulse on what's going on as far as economic activity in town. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns for new business or unfinished business? Hearing none, we will move on to resignations.
There's one resignation, Your Honor, and it's from Lydia Jasinski from the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Board.
Motion to accept said resignation and send a letter of thanks.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For appointments, we only have a couple. The first is to appoint David Proleski to replace Greg Hahn in the capacity of acting mayor from tonight through November 8th, 2021.
So moved.
I think that's a mayor's appointment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Appointment.
Just wanted to give Dave the stamp of approval. He's a great guy.
2-month swan song. Okay. Yes, that is a mayor's appointment, so that takes effect tonight. The next one is the City Cemetery Commission, which is an appointment of Nikki Laporte to replace Deanne Levesque, who has resigned for an unexpired term to March of 2022.
So moved. Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On the Green Hills Building Project Committee, to approve the nomination from the nominating committee of Danielle Kuchar to replace Jocelyn Benoit, resigned.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For the Northeast Middle School Building Committee, which is a mayor's appointment, I'm appointing Scott Rosado as the council member to the nominating committee.
Thank you for clarifying. I wanted to move that too, so good thing.
Okay. And then, let's see, you're welcome. Planning Commission, to appoint Christopher Chase Nardi to replace Joe Kalida Jr., alternate member to the Planning Commission, for an unexpired term to July 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For the Bristol School Readiness Council, we have 3 members: Amber Lipscomb as the workforce member, Tashiana Garcia as the small business member, and Siri Gilmore, parent member, all for terms through August of 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So right now, from a vacancy perspective, I am going to be looking for a community member who would like to be involved with the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Council, which is attached to Nutmeg TV. I am looking for a member to serve as an alternate on the Inland Wetlands Commission. And I am looking for a member of the public who would like to serve on the Freedom of Information Advisory Board. And we are in the process of vetting resumes for the vacancy on the Board of Finance. But I'm still interested in hearing from anybody if they have somebody that would like to be considered. And that's it for appointments. Moving on to agenda item 11. This is to award contract 2P21-086, the revaluation support services to Municipal Valuation Services LLC for $250,000 and authorize the mayor or the acting mayor to execute. This is from the assessor's office, and our assessor, Tom Donato, is here. If anybody has any questions, or Tom, if you're not mentally and physically exhausted, if you'd like to give an overview of what your office is starting to do over the next year, we'd love to hear from it, since we do have some new members who haven't been through this before.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Every 5 years, the city goes through a statutory mandate to update all of our values based on current market activity. So we're going to be putting some information out on the assessor webpage that will show by zone and by census tract some of the very positive things that we're seeing have occurred in the residential market. Multifamilies downtown across the board, we're seeing valuation increases despite some of the negativism that has been unfortunately portrayed. It's a factor of low interest rates. I think everybody shouldn't be surprised at this point that the residential component market values are appreciating. So municipal valuations, they've worked with us in 2012 on the top 10 taxpayer list. They've also worked with us through the 2017 revaluation. We have a great working relationship with them. And just as a point of reference, our contract bid came in at about 50% of other municipalities across the state. The type of revaluation is that we're doing is an in-house hybrid revaluation where all of us on the staff put in a lot of our own labor to make sure that the consultant, all they're really focusing in on are the values, and they're not doing any of the data entry. So between the sales and the permitting processes, a lot of the income and expense report information is all manually done by the assessment staff, which is really, really integral to this low contract amount at $250,000. So cheers to my staff.
Thank you.
So we don't see you here very often, Tom, so why don't you just give the quick review of what you've structured in your office in order for the continuity?
Yeah, that was one of the unknowns because we had our deputy assessor, Judith Dick. Her picture is on the wall over there in the rose or pink blouse. She's retired.
I'm sorry, that's salmon.
Oh, salmon, thank you, Peter. And since she's retired, John DiGiovanna, who was the assessment technician, was promoted to her position. And upon his promotion, his job became available, and Emmanuel Lorenzo was also promoted into John's job. We've had a staff that has cross-trained throughout without any complaint, which has been also very supportive in all of these endeavors, so that all of my efforts can be duplicated, everybody else's efforts, right through the clerical staff. It's been a true team effort. So thank you for letting me speak about that.
And Judy is staying with us for a little bit.
She is, yes. She's been an integral part in helping John. She's got a brain trust of 23 years experience, and it's just very, very difficult to be able to tap into every little nuance that she's experienced in those 23 years. So she's replicating all of that, and John, who, you know, he's a native of Bristol. He grew up here, and he has many, many years experience as well. 13 years in the assessor's office, so very deserving.
I think we're set up to have a good year.
I hope so, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
If there are no questions or concerns, do we make a motion?
No, so moved.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 12, this is something that we saw last month. We used our resolution language in August, but we have since been noticed by the state of Connecticut that they have special resolution language that they would like us to use. So we are bringing back item 12, which is a resolution regarding the application for an urban action grant for a Center Square infrastructure project assistance agreement for $4,692,000 and refer it to the Board of Finance. Does somebody have that resolution?
I do, Your Honor. Whereas pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 4-66C, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the City of Bristol make an application to the state for $4,692,000 in order to undertake the Bristol Center Square infrastructure project and to execute an assistance agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the Bristol City Council, 1, that it is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Connecticut General Statutes Section 4-66C. 2, that the filing of an application for state financial assistance by the City of Bristol in an amount not to exceed $4,692,000 is hereby approved, and that Mayor Ellen Szabo Sasu is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the City of Bristol.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, and just for the clarification of our viewing audience, this grant is covering the construction of the parking garage to the rear of the police department, as well as the parcel 4 public space. And today, I believe that Dustin Malley and staff were working on getting some of that money appropriated so that we can start some of the study that needs to be happened on the engineering components for parcel 4. So, if we have any questions? No? Okay. This is a roll call vote, and I will ask that it start on my left.
Yes.
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 And the chair votes yes, the resolution is approved. Item 13 is also a resolution regarding the authorization for the staff of the Economic and Community Development Department to submit environmental review reports on behalf of the city as required by HUD under signature of the executive director or the grants administrator. Currently, I am the signature on that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense from an efficiency standpoint, so we are going to ask that that be sent back to the staff level who are more intimately acquainted with those reports and actually complete them. Does somebody have the resolution ready?
I do.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Bristol, Connecticut, that the mayor and the City Council hereby authorize the Executive Director of Economic and Community Development or his designee to review and submit environmental review reports on behalf of the City of Bristol as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in accordance with the National Environmental Policies Act 24 CFR 58.34, 58.5, and 58.36. Notice of this resolution shall be placed on file and subject to review by HUD officials upon request.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote starting on my far right.
Yes.
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 And the chair votes yes. Resolution is adopted. We have already handled agenda item 14. So on to 15, is there any other business proper to come before the said meeting? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.